Hello there everyone and welcome back. It's Carol again from the Crafty Emporium. So we started in the previous video this file folder lapbook. So just to do a quick recap, we've got a front cover there and an inside cover there. Nothing as of yet on the inside. That's what I'm going to be covering with you today. And then on the back side of the covers there's this file folder style pocket. So as I say, we're going to be working on the inside flips and flaps today. So we know that from the 5 file folders that we use 3 in making the cover and we've got 2 left. Okay, so I'm going to be working with these 2 today. The next thing that you need to be aware of is the fact that we are going to be attaching stuff to this right hand side spine here and to this left hand side spine. All right, we're going to be starting on the right hand side first. So when I talk about the right hand side spine, this is the area that I'm talking about here. All right, so let's get started. So this time I'm going to be using this file folder which has got the tab at the bottom, and as I've done previously I'm going to be trimming off these tab sections. So I'm going to be using this little kink here at the top, so place it in the trimmer and trim it off, and again keep that for later. And I'm going to do the same on the other side and trim the other piece off, and again save that tab for later. Okay, whoops. So we've now got this as our file folder. Now I'm going to cut it on the right hand side, you can see there. So we've got this scored part here and I'm going to be trimming this bit off here to make it into 2 separate pieces. So I'll use that score line as my guide. I'm going to trim it off. So we're going to be using these 2 pieces here. So using this one in my right hand, that's the piece that I'm going to work with first. I've got it in my score pal and I'm going to score this at 4.5 inches. I'm now going to fold this piece and burnish. Now as you can see I've got a little bit of a mark on there, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'll be covering these over anyway with decorative papers. Then I'm going to get my glue and I'm going to spin it over because I've got, this is a narrow side and this is much wider, and I want to put glue on the back side of the wider piece, so I'm going to flip it over for ease. Now what I'm actually going to do with this forms the pockets on the back central panel. All right, so I will place glue around 1, 2, 3 sides, and I'll also put a line of glue down the center as well. Okay, so I'll do that and I'll come back in a second. I've placed glue around the 3 sides as I just showed, and I've done a line of glue down the center, so I'll now have 2 pockets. Obviously you can make it into 3 pockets if you wish. Then I'm going to bring my cover back in. So I'm going to open it up, and as I said, we're going to be working with this right hand side spine over here. Now I'm going to line this up so that the opening of the pockets is on this side. So that means that I want the glue section down the edge of this spine, and I'm gluing it to the left hand side of this spine area so that that will sit on there, and I'm butting it up to that score line because I want to be able to still close it. If I stick it on top of the score line, I won't be able to close this piece here, so it needs to be butt up next to it. And then I've got my first flip in place and I've got 2 pockets that I can use. Okay, so that's the first bit done. I'm going to just put this to one side and we'll go on to the next bit. This was the other part of file folder D that we cut off, and we cut it up next to the natural fold line of the folder. Now if you have a close look, there's actually a little bit of a lip here, so I'm just going to trim that off first, so that it gives me a neater edge. So, you know, I've trimmed off about 1/8 of an inch there. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use these pre-scored lines that are already here by folding it along this third line of score lines here. And again, I'm just going to burnish that to make it a slightly more permanent crease. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to taper just a little bit off that folded section, just to give it a neater finish when we glue it into the actual lapbook itself. So I've just tapered those two small ends here. Now I actually want this to sit this way round, so that that narrow little strip is on the left hand side, okay? And I'm going to be putting glue on this folded section of this tiny flap. And I'm going to be covering the whole of that section with glue. And again, if I bring back in the cover, so this was the little tiny flap that we've just used. Now this little tiny flap here is going to actually sit on top of the spine area of the cover. So carefully position that on there, and again we want it butt up to the edge of this fold line here, because we want to be able to close it. If you sit it on top, you won't be able to close it. And also when we flip it open, we want this little flip that we've just stuck down, we want it almost butting up to the edge of this one here, so that it makes it a nice neater finish. So we've now got the big flap, a little flap, and two pockets, and that's the right hand side done. So we're now going to start adding some flips onto this left hand side over here. So again, I'm just going to put this to one side, and I'll get the next file folder out, which is file folder E. So this is file folder E, and again I'm going to open it up and I'm going to trim off these two tab ends, again using just the little kinks that are at the top and bottom of the file folder. So I'll come back in a second and I'll show you the next step. The first thing that I want to do with this file folder is that it's already pre-scored and folded to make the file folder, and then we've got these 3 score lines here. So again, I'm going to fold it on that third score line, and I'm going to burnish it. So I've now got this sort of thing, so that this is now already pre-folded. So I've now got my file folder scored and folded, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off from the left hand side of this score line here. I'm going to measure 1.5 inches and trim it off. To be able to do that, I'm going to have to spin it round, and I'm going to put this fold line here on the 1.5 inch mark, and then I can cut that off. So I've now got 2 pieces that look like this. So with those 2 pieces, I'm going to take the larger piece first, and I'm going to spin it around, and I'm going to score it at 4 inches. Now at this point, I'm not actually going to fold and burnish that score line that I've just done, and you'll see why in a little while. So I've got my cover back, and I've got this large piece that has got this spine area on it with a tiny little flap on the end, and then this was the section that we've just scored at 4.5 inches. As I say, we're not folding and burnishing that score mark just yet. So if I open up the cover, as I said, we're now dealing with the left hand side spine of the actual cover itself. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on this spine area of file folder E. So if I open it up and put glue on there, excuse me, and I'm going to make sure that I've got that well covered, because it's going to be supporting a fair bit of weight. So I want to make sure that my glue's evenly spread out and that I've got plenty on, so that it won't come away from the actual cover itself. Okay, so I've got that little tiny flap there on the top. I'm going to sit it up, and I'm going to sit it on top of the spine that's on the left hand side. Now because it's the same size as the one that's already there, you need to make sure that it sits nice and squarely inside the original spine of the cover. And to make sure that you can still close and have a spine area on your cover. So I've now got this little tiny flap here. I've got this big side over here with the score line on, and if I pull it back, we've got these pieces that we added onto the right hand side. Now this is why I didn't fold this score line here, because I want the edge of this score line to match up with this flap that's on the right. So I'm just going to test it. Oh, look at that, look, perfect fit. Because I want them butt up next to each other. So if it doesn't quite butt up, then you might need to alter your fold line just slightly to get it so that it butts up and so that it doesn't actually overlap with each other. Now you can leave it that this flap goes this way, or, which is what I've done on my previous ones, I folded the flap to go on the inside, and it still butts up nicely. So then I've got that and the flip, and it folds in and it butts up next to this smaller flap on the right hand side. So now I can burnish that fold to make sure that it's a nice permanent fold. Now we're on to the next bit. This was the smallest part of that file folder that we've just cut. So I'm going to put it in my score pal, and I'm going to score it at 2 1/4 and 2 3/4. So 2 1/4 and 2 3/4. And again, I'm going to fold and burnish those score lines. So that we've now got a little gully running down the centre of there, and we've got one that is slightly shorter and one slightly longer. Bringing my cover back in, making sure that I've pushed the little flap over to the left and I've got that double fold flap over to the right. I can now see that spine area again of the cover, and so I'm going to place glue on the back of here and stick that on top of there in the centre, because there's a little bit of space on each side of this spine area here for that to sit within. So if I lay it flat and place glue on there, and I'm just spreading it about at the moment, I'm not adding any more glue. And then fold it and bend it again, and then that will sit in there. Make sure that I've got it nice and centralised. Fold that first little flap over, and you can now see I've got that tiered section of 1, 2, 3 tiers, and then this is the one that flaps over and flaps over again. Flip this inner piece over and the cover, close it back up. It's done and dusted, all ready for you to use. Now you may remember in the last previous video we cut off this piece on file folder C. I'm going to leave this piece up to you. You could cut it out and make it into tags. You could add it as a pocket on the inside cover of A, so that you've got a pocket here, and with it having this automatic cutout area here from the file folder, from the original file folder, that makes a nice little accent point. You could add it onto the end of your file folder A and then open it out as another flip out there. You could add it and chop it down and add it as a pocket on any part of the file folder covers or the big flip piece on the inside, so that that would make a nice pocket on the inside. But out of those 5 file folders, this is the only piece that's left over, and I'm going to let you choose what you actually want to do with that. The other thing obviously that we did was we saved all these strips with all the tabs coming off, and the reason why I saved them was my thought process was that if you cut them down, you could then add them onto any part of any of the flaps where you wanted them to go. And this is why I cut them off, because I thought until I start to decorate it up and I'm not quite sure what I want to go where, I don't know where I want the tabs to be. So I might decide that I want a tab on there. I might decide that I want a tab on some of these little flip pieces, the tiered flip pieces. And I thought, well, at least if I've cut them off and saved them, I can now trim them down and position them exactly where I want them to be, rather than the file dictating where they actually are. So there was method in my madness of cutting them all off, because now I can position them wherever I so wish. Of course, the next part of this is down to you and how you're going to go about decorating it. At the moment, this cover is just the bare bones of a lapbook. How you then decorate it is entirely up to you. Don't forget to add some extra support by adding strips of quite a sturdy card onto the left and the right hand side spines to be able to support the weight of all that is going on inside of your lapbook. if you're going to cover pieces like this, the flap of the pocket on the back, and it's already got this pre-cut piece out here of the tab, is you can actually open it up, sit it on top of the piece of paper that you want to use, and you can draw around it, and then you can cut your paper out so that then you know that it's going to be the right fit to go onto the actual piece of card itself. The other nice thing about these creamy coloured file folders is that they ink up really nicely. So if you're into inking up, you might want to consider doing all of that, inking all of these edges up before you actually start to add any of your papers. And of course, again, the closure, that is again entirely up to you how you go about closing it. You may decide that you want to trim this first one down a little so that you've got an overlap here to be able to do a closure across the two, because at the moment this front cover goes right the way up to the edge of this right hand side spine. Again, I will leave that entirely up to you. So I hope you've enjoyed having a go at making this lapbook. I'm really looking forward to what you're actually going to create, and I will be doing a video on the one that I've done, but not just yet, because I don't want to influence what it is that you do with yours. So as I said before, in the community section of my YouTube page, so up the top up there, you've got home, you've got videos, playlists, and then you've got community. If you click on the community button, you will see that I will add, probably next week, a post to say please add your links to your videos here for the lapbook, and that's where I would like you to add your links. Now if you've subscribed already and you've hit that bell notification, you will automatically get notified, or you will see any posts that I put up in my community section. If you haven't subscribed and you haven't rung that bell, you won't get to see those community posts. To be able to enter into the competition, you will need to be a subscriber, and I would suggest that you do that anyway, because you'll need to know when that notification comes up, when I've added the post, for you to be able to add the links for your own benefit. And last but by no means least, don't forget that there is a set of instructions with pictures talking you through each of the steps that show you how to go about making this lapbook. You might find it useful to have these and work alongside it with the video as well, so that if any of the pictures aren't totally clear for you, you can watch it on the video and you'll go, know what she means now, and vice versa. You might be watching the video and not quite understanding what I mean, and so the written instruction might just be enough of the prompt to be able to do that for you. So again, I'll put the link in the description box beneath this video to be able to go and purchase these. They were not being sold separately, they're being sold together, so it's one complete pack, but I've separated them into, those are the instructions for the cover and those are the instructions for the inside. So it's that simple. Thank you very much for watching. Really looking forward to what you're going to create, and I'll see you all again really soon. Bye for now.